really, I was just kind of processing with God about how we have the way that we react in situations, right? And as children, whenever we felt insecure or upset or threatened or, all those kind of emotions, we had coping mechanisms, right, that we developed in childhood. And they were actually probably super helpful in your childhood or somewhere along the way where you felt threatened, insecure, whatever, and you defaulted to this coping mechanism, this defense mechanism that got you through. But in your adult life, it's so easy to carry through with those same habits or those defense mechanisms or coping mechanisms, and they don't always work well for the rest of your life. In fact, they can really mess up your relationships. When we feel attacked, fearful, upset, or insecure in a relationship, we tend to gravitate to one of these 4 F-bombs, coping mechanisms that can actually ruin relationships. And we're going to unpack them in some detail, but I've just written them out for you here. There's the fight, you probably all heard of that one, kind of like the attack mode. There's the flight, where you're escaping in some way, or trying to. There's the freeze, where you become paralyzed in a sense. And then there's one that a lot of you haven't really heard about, fawning. And this is where you do anything to please the other person, just so they'll stay happy and there won't be all this tension. And yeah, I know if I should ask for a show of hands right now, there would be many hands going up on it. And it's all our response to this underlying fear. We use fight, flight, freeze, and fawn in a response to this feeling of being threatened. It's a fear response, right? But God does not intend for us to live in fear, cowering in fear. Joshua 1:9, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And as I was praying about this message, I feel like God wanted you to know this. I felt like I'm almost saying, Lord, what exactly, if it was just like boiling it down to one sentence, what do you want the women to know? And this is what I felt like he said, so I wrote it down. Why are you fearful? Why are you acting as if you are alone? Don't you see I am right here with you? It's like, oh yeah, right? Because I know when I have that fear response, which can kick in really easily, I feel alone. And I might want to do the fawning, or I might do the flight, or whatever, but it's like, if I can remind myself, wait a minute, I am not by myself. I am not alone. God's saying, no, you are not alone. I'm right here with you. It reminds me of Matthew 28:20, where Jesus says this to his followers, and surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. So we're not alone. So let's start living with the reassurance that Jesus is right beside us, and let's stop defaulting to these kind of harmful coping mechanisms. But first we have to begin recognizing when we're engaging in one of these harmful coping mechanisms out of fear, insecurity, feeling threatened, whatever. And sometimes, again, we're so upset in the moment that we don't even realize we're doing these things. And so that's really what this lesson is about, is starting to recognize, I'm doing that thing again, right? And then doing something different. Because I don't know about you guys, but it's so deeply ingrained in me. This is my automatic response, right? And so it's partly just recognizing, oh, I'm doing that thing again, so that we can change the pattern. Okay, so let's go to how to recognize if you resort to one or more of these destructive coping mechanisms in a relationship and how they harm relationships. So first is the fight mechanism. And here are the signs that you might have this one. You attack when you feel fearful or insecure. You go on the attack. You may try to get back into perceived control by intimidating other people, criticizing them, putting them in their place through sarcasm. You often interpret other people's words or facial expressions as an attack, and then feel justified in a counterattack. When you're fearful or feeling threatened, you give unsolicited advice. You make unreasonable demands. You try to control the behavior of others. And you also tend to have a personal scapegoat so that you can just vent your frustration, your anger, this feeling of being upset. You want to vent it. So that's probably one of the most obvious ones. Wouldn't you say, like the fight one? You're on the attack. Let's go to flight. What are the signs that you have this coping mechanism? Well, you tend to escape often by distracting yourself. And there are so many ways that we can distract ourselves. I have to tell you, I'll just tell myself all through the evening here, so that you don't have to. I'll just tell myself. So I found in this one period of my life where it just like I was just feeling like there was a lot of turmoil. I was neurotic. I was doing jigsaw puzzles. I mean, like a new one every day. I was like, and I get another jigsaw puzzle, and I get another jigsaw puzzle, and I have in one of my closets in the house probably like 80 jigsaw puzzles because there was a time where it's like, and I just have to do another jigsaw puzzle because it was like distracting me. I was just distracting myself. I was escaping. I was taking flight because I didn't want to deal with this perceived ugliness and this thing that was upsetting me. But it could be anything. It could be becoming engrossed in a hobby, and you're just like, well, I gotta go do that now. I just gotta go do that now. Or maybe watching just excessive amounts of TV, or doing excessive amount of video gaming, or excessive amount of anything. Pinterest, shopping, Facebook. I mean, it could be anything where you're just like, I just gotta go do this now. But you can tie it to, I feel insecure, I feel threatened, I feel upset, I feel angry, and so I just have to go do this thing. For a lot of women, it could be reading a romance novel. I'm just going to escape to a whole other person's life because my life is just kind of ugly right now, so I'm just going to go be this character for a while in this book. It's going to be so great. The ultimate flight is sleeping. Now, of course, I'm not talking about like that you need to go to sleep. I'm saying like, you're upset, you're angry, you feel threatened, I just have to go take a nap right now. I mean, and sometimes that is like the ultimate flight response. Freeze. Signs that you use this as your coping mechanism, you tend to give up. Accept the inevitability of being hurt and just kind of blank out. You could almost like become paralyzed in that moment. Fawn. This is the one that, again, has been added in recent years by psychologists and Christian counselors too, because this is just, I mean, this isn't a bunch of psychobabble, it's just like, this is what we do as people. We have these typical responses. And fawn is one they added because they realized that so many people do this as their coping mechanism. And by the way, you might have more than one. You probably have one or two that you default to. And for me, it is the flight and the fawn. So signs that you fawn when feeling insecure, threatened, angry, upset, fearful would be, you respond to a perceived threat by trying to be pleasing or helpful in order to appease and hold off what you sense could be an attack. So you're being like a people pleaser. You're like an ultimate people pleaser. A doormat. You walk on eggshells all the time, hoping to keep the other person happy. Because then maybe things will be okay, right? You barely show the real you, and instead you hide behind your helpful persona and you overgive to everybody, thereby not risking real self-exposure and risking rejection because you're just always overgiving. And so you think pretty highly of yourself. You're like, I am amazing. I'm just giving and giving and giving to everybody. But often it can be like that you're just being a people pleaser because you have this fawning reaction, like, this is going to hold off the perceived threat if I just walk on eggshells, do whatever this person wants. Okay, how does this ruin relationships? Let me just see if you can guess how this ruins the relationships. There's an R word that comes to mind. Does anyone know what the R word is? You become resentful.